Are you trying to establish your brand as a thought leader? Start a podcast, invite industry experts to be guests on your show, and watch your brand become the prime resource for decision makers in your industry. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm Jonathan Green.
And I'm James Carberry.
Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. We are here today with Chris Schermer. He is the president and CEO at Shermer. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm great, James. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. So, Chris, we're going to be talking about 10 ways that buyer-driven brands create business-building results today. But before we dive into those 10 things, I'd love for our audience to understand why you're the guy to be talking about this. Can you explain what you and your team are up to at Shermer?
Sure. My agency is just finishing up our 20th year in business. So we're celebrating that anniversary. We're located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but we are working with a lot of very large organizations across the globe to help them build better buyer-driven experiences and on behalf of their brands and products. So we work with companies like 3M, Honeywell, GE, ADP, and Eaton to help them a lot of times around innovation and new products and building new experiences and thinking about building those buyer-driven brands.
I love it. So, Chris, like I said, we've got 10 specific things that buyer-driven brands do to create results. And so I want to dive right in because I want to make sure that we get through all of these. As we were talking offline, you mentioned that the first one is they make serving the buyer's purpose the brand's purpose. Can you elaborate on that for us a bit?
Yeah, definitely. We find that in B2B especially, and the times are changing, that's for sure, but a lot of the companies, the large companies that we're working with, they're legacy, and they have legacy revenue streams, legacy business models, siloed business and departmental organizations. And so the purpose of their brand a lot of times is to perpetuate the organizational structure, the budgeting structure, and so on, or to they think revenue first and growth first instead of thinking buyer first. So in our experience, most brands are self-absorbed when we believe they should be buyer-driven. And so when an organization makes a commitment to being buyer-driven, they make a commitment to supporting the buyer's purpose and supporting the mission and the modes of that buyer. And also think about the meaning that they make, not just the marketing that they do.
Okay, so the second one is these buyer-driven brands, they support the buyer's real modes, not just imaginary journeys. Talk to us about this one.
Yeah, so this is really interesting, James. In 2016, Shermer was a partner in a new initiative called the Digital B2B Collaborative. And we started this collaborative with a research and strategy company called Stone Mantle, who had run some digital collaboratives before on the consumer side. We partnered to launch the first ever B2B digital collaborative with Coca-Cola, Fifth Third Bank, TE Connectivity, and 3M. So those were our charter members. We spent a year researching small business buyers, looking at how digital has changed their expectations and their experiences with large enterprise suppliers. And one of the things that we found was that the traditional model of thinking about buyer journey and aligning content to that journey, connection strategy to it, it's a nice planning methodology, but it doesn't actually line up against the actual behavior of buyers. Buyers are not always on a journey. They typically have a mission. And that mission is divided into modes of behavior, and modes of behavior are further boiled down into jobs to do. And so we actually found ourselves getting pretty wrapped up in the complexity of trying to manage an entire buyer journey and the amount of complexity and money it took to try to align our brand to the buyer at every step of the buyer journey. When through the digital collaborative research and the frameworks that we developed, we discovered this idea of modes. We, instead of thinking about supporting the buyer journey, started thinking about supporting the modes that they were in and the jobs that they were trying to do, regardless of the process or the linear model of the buyer journey. And what we found was we could find much more contextual and relevant places to insert the brand to help that person solve the job that they were trying to do in the mode that they're trying to accomplish.
This is really interesting, Chris. Could you explain what some of those modes were, just to give listeners kind of an idea of what this could look like for them?
Yeah, so we found probably about 15 to 20 modes that we felt comfortable defining. And they are not what I would consider to be like, sexy scientific terms. There was money management mode, there was forecasting mode, there was strategizing mode, there was people management mode, there was solving mode. But the one thing that was common, we even identified relaxation mode, training mode, all these different things, because these are the modes that people find themselves in during their day. And within those modes are specific jobs that they want to accomplish. But the one thing that we found was relevant for every mode was that research is a part of a majority of those modes. So research in and of itself is not necessarily a mode. Learning might be a mode that you're in. You want to learn about something, and you'll use research to do it. And so that lends so much credence to today's search-driven and content-driven marketing methodologies. Because if you think about the mode that someone is in a constant state of research about learning, optimizing, growing, and so on, we can help them in so many different ways by being contextually relevant and ready with buyer-driven content to support the job and the mode that they're in.
I love it. That's a really interesting idea that I haven't heard someone talk about before. So I appreciate you sharing that. This third one, Chris, that we're going to talk about is these buyer-driven brands. They create content that buyers actually want. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So during the digital collaborative, the research that we did on the small business buyers, we actually had them rank the usefulness of different types of content. And what they reported and what the research showed us was that 63% of the business buyers ranked industry trends as helpful content, whereas only 12% ranked case studies as helpful content. In the middle of those was consumer trends at 51% ranking of that as helpful, and information about products and services, only 37% ranked as helpful content. But what we see B2B brands doing all the time is trying to get people to consume the content about their products and services first. And that's not the content that buyers actually want. What they want is they want to know what's coming at them from an industry standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, so that they can adjust their business to meet those challenges head on. And then if you've helped them understand those challenges or those trends, they'll welcome your solutions to those opportunities and problems.
It makes sense. This fourth one is we want to find and amplify a common cause. Explain this one to us, Chris.
Sure. So consumers are always looking, B2B buyers and customers are always looking for content that informs, inspires, entertains, or enhances their status. And so we think that brands have this unique opportunity to be a conduit to those things that they care about the most, the information, the causes that they care about. And we call these things connective issues. So a lot of times, again, brands are they're in a mindset of, I need to sell you something. And we're in the mindset of, we're trying to tell you something. And we also want you to tell us something. And it's about when you can find that connective issue, the step above that is a connective cause. And that offers the rare opportunity to rally a community in a way that people can see and celebrate. And oftentimes by not just interacting with the brand, but influencing and interacting others like them on behalf of your brand. So a good example is we've been working with 3M Medical for the past several years, and we introduced this cause-related campaign called Kindness Matters because they've been trying to sell medical tapes. And medical tapes in and of themselves are interesting to a few people, critical care nurses and some other people. But when you look at all of the things that medical tapes actually, conditions that they can worsen or cause on their own through what's called medical adhesive-related skin injuries, all of a sudden it becomes a hospital issue because this is now something that is causing events where they have to continue caring for a person or fix the mistake that they made because they used the wrong type of adhesive tape. So Kindness Matters is an attempt to say that kindness in care and in the selection of the products that you use actually has a direct outcome on the care that you deliver and the outcomes that you produce. And so we produce all this content around Kindness Matters and how it's not only feels good, but it has a business bottom line as well. And what we found was that people were carrying that message forward in their organization to others as well as externally because they championed the cause.
All right, this fifth one, Chris, open yourself to people talking openly about your brand. What's that mean?
So everybody knows that buyers are more likely to trust and engage unbiased, user-generated or co-created content, which is why we think that brands should put buyers front and center in marketing efforts. And so we did some work with Toro not too long ago, who was a little concerned about a purely open social campaign where they were soliciting customer testimonials around their golf course products, so golf course maintenance and groundskeeping. And they were a little leery about just going completely open, and understandably so. Most brands are. What we did for them was we designed a site experience called the Leaderboard, and it's specifically to let golf course superintendents share experiences and opinions on Toro products. And what we found was we were collecting all of these different quotes, and we could use data then to look at what types of products they're using, measure the sentiment of the products around different types of products, and then to share those things as within campaigns themselves. And so this actually has been one of the most utilized customer or consumer marketing and also sales, because late in the pipeline, they're saying, if you don't believe me, believe other people just like you.
I love it. This sixth one, Chris, share the stage and amplify your audience. I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this one, but take it away from here.
Yeah. So, I just believe that buyers don't want just the brand to be the storytellers. In a lot of cases, they want the brands to be story sharers, because buyers, especially in B2B, are actually the ones who are using B2B products to do something, to achieve something, to accomplish something. It might even be embedded in a product. So really, sometimes the brand doesn't own the story. The buyer does, the customer does. And so we want those people to share the story. But to do so, we've got to create a stage for them that we can shine the spotlight on those stories. So for a client that we worked with, GN Resound, which is the fourth largest hearing aid company in the world, we created a campaign called Moments That Matter. And these moments were for the channel. So for hearing aid professionals, like at retail stores, like Hearing Hopkins Hearing or whatever the town is, or an audiology professional, they've collected unconsciously and consciously all of these different moments where hearing mattered to the people and the patients that they see. And so we wanted to create a campaign that would help them celebrate those special life moments that they make possible for their patients. So we created a microsite and a social channel and a hashtag that was Make Moments. And the microsite got over 300,000 unique visitors and more than 2,800 personal moments submitted to via the site and social media in just the course of a year and a half. Wow. And it was just stories about my patient's eyes widened and then started to tear up hearing his new baby boy crying, hashtag Make Moments. And so we invited people to share the joy of hearing in those moments. And we got an overwhelming response and saw what had been kind of a deteriorating brand loyalty metric go through the roof with their channel after this campaign.
All right, Chris, the seventh one is embrace social as the new sales platform. Talk to us about this one.
Yeah, so a lot of B2B brands think of, well, first off, I got to tell you, James, a couple of years ago, I was literally begging our brands to take chances and make investments in social media. And probably just within the last couple of years, B2B clients really started to recognize the channel as a real way that they could not only engage with buyers, but actually start to influence the sales process. We've been doing a lot of work, not just with brand advocacy and engagement through organic posts, but a ton of demand gen as well, paid demand gen. We, as I mentioned, we're working a lot with 3M. We're doing social demand gen in 27 different countries around the world. And the reason why they continue to make these investments is because we're correlating direct data in terms of engagement as well as click-throughs and sales metrics to our efforts. So number one, the mediums themselves, even in some industries, the mediums of Facebook and Instagram are really catching on, especially where a professional product and a passion career intersect, where lifestyle is part of someone's work. So medical field and teaching and those types of industries and fields, we're seeing social like Facebook and Instagram really perform well. In others, it is Twitter, LinkedIn are a little bit better. But we've designed some apps that are sit within the Facebook platform themselves. Like, for instance, we did one for Littman stethoscopes, which is a 3M brand. It's the number one stethoscope in the world. And we created a holiday gift giving app where the selector tool for the type of stethoscope, the type of diaphragm and bell, the type of tubing and color could be selected by the person who wanted to receive the gift. Then they can post a personalized message that said, something like, wouldn't I look good in this color? And they could send that and post it in their feed for their loved ones to see and just click through directly to an e-commerce experience. So that's where social can take a sales process directly out of the equation. No more sales, no more dealer, and the brand is actually doing social e-commerce.
All right, this eighth one, Chris, they invest in data-driven digital platforms.
Yeah, so James, the most obvious, obviously, are things like CRM systems and then marketing automation platforms. Those are, the kind of the platform, so to speak, that sales and marketing organizations are running on. We just helped U.S. Bank conduct its first, in their wholesale banking group, their first kind of legitimate pilot program around content marketing, where we stood up a marketing automation platform for them. And we tested the Serious Decisions methodology utilizing that platform. We use digital media and demand gen programmatic to learn about the prospective targets that we were trying to reach. We used all the different touch points and lead scoring and so on to create better content experiences for them. We used the data that we were collecting on them about their industry and their titles to actually create different landing page versions. On those landing pages, for instance, we had calculators that would help them calculate their savings in corporate payments, and we could tailor that and personalize it based on the type of industry that we knew they were in, if it was travel or corporate or what have you. Another thing that we're doing that's pretty interesting that I'm seeing is to utilize, I'm not trying to give a plug to Salesforce, but there is a lot of development being done that used to be kind of a back-end system, and now it's very much the front end of planning, like account-based marketing programs, how to bring those to life. And we helped Honeywell launch a product called Slate, which is the first of its kind combustion management system for large commercial buildings. Okay. And the modular system, it's pretty incredible. What used to be a very complex engineered system is now a very simple modular configuration. But in order to make this vision come to life, we recommended to them to create a configuration tool on the back end, an electronic tool, whereas before they had to work with a sales engineer to configure their combustion systems. And so this entire product experience now, from the lead gen through demand creation, through the demand gen, the content programs, the microsite, the learning about the product, all the way to registering to become a dealer, through the configuration tool, it's all now part of one seamless experience. And it's made possible by thinking about a data-driven platform that can help you deliver that experience from the beginning to the end. What this platform has allowed us to do is completely streamline that experience, take out all the friction in the process, and now people can order their combustion tool and carry no inventory. So it creates a just-in-time delivery system. And it's all, again, because of the digital CRM system on the back end that we're utilizing, with permission-based and account-based permissions all the way through the marketing automation process.
All right, this ninth one, Chris, you talk about making mobile a mandatory mindset.
Yeah, I think the market is catching up with thinking about mobile as mandatory, but it still is. I mean, everybody just has to shake their head over how many websites or how many brands are still not mobile first. And we do find, actually, in our research, that there are a lot of industries and a lot of professions where desktop is still the primary digital interface. And that might be in an environment where it's an engineer, for instance. and they're working at their computer all day, and their mobile is not their primary work device. But we also know that the minute that 5 o'clock hits or whatever it is, or throughout the day, that mobile device is also sitting next to that desktop. And they want to consume content on that. They want to flip through it. They want to watch more and more video on that. They want to check news feeds and news sources. They want to do that both at work and at home. So even if a brand thinks, well, my user is still primarily using a desktop, we have to align ourselves to their world, which is increasingly mobile. And that is a mindset, and it's a lifestyle, and it's now a reality.
That makes perfect sense. This 10th one and the last one we'll talk about today, Chris, is champion your company's commitment to exceptional design. Talk to us about this one before I let you go.
Yeah, and I even more specifically than exceptional design, which we believe in here at Shermer, but experience design. And I mentioned this at the top end of our conversation today, that most B2B organizations, they are organized around P&Ls or product lines or legacy, revenue streams or siloed departments and organizations. And they're held accountable to those things, but they're also held back by those very same things. And so divisions and departments are often siloed with different priorities, which inhibits their collaboration, limits the ability to think. And once that happens, it limits their ability to act buyer-driven. And so they start doing what they need to do to cross off their checklist and their boxes, or to just think exclusively. We have so many clients who think exclusively about lead generation at the expense of thinking about, well, how does that fit into a buyer's experience or my customer experience? So we think that brands should be aligning their internal organization around the consumer, not around their functions. And every department should be responsible for working together to make the customer experience the priority. But I also think that marketing, which has historically been the voice of customer, needs to be the leader in that effort to champion experience design.
All right, Chris, if somebody's listening to this, they want to stay connected with you, they want to learn more about your agency, Shermer, what's the best way for them to go about doing both of those things?
Well, on the web, we have a website, which is shermer.co, shermer.co, not .com. And our Twitter handle is @Shermer_co. Those are probably the best two ways to follow along with us, but people can always feel free to email me too at chris.schermer@shermer.co. And that's SCHERMER.
Wonderful, Chris. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it, James.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.